Okay, I'm here with Miranda Maverick, who's having a UFC debut at UFC 254. First of all, let me thank you for taking the time out to do an interview here with me today, because I know you must be really busy with your training camp. So thanks so much for that.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And yeah, it's been a busy time the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I can imagine it is. So let's get right into it. My first question to you really is, obviously I spent the last weekend watching every fight you've had, and I want to know what your own personal growth has been since your pro debut against Samantha Diaz to your last fight against Paul Gonzalez.
My first fight, I had no idea how to punch someone in the face correctly. It was purely a submission game. Like I had a little bit of striking, but I never really used it, to be honest, and wasn't confident in it. I've also grown mentally a lot. Some of it's just age. I matured a lot, being 19 years old and going into this big organization. I was like, oh, wow. Literally, my first pro fight for Invicta, I went and asked every girl for their signature, on my
Really?
shirt. Excited to be there, and all these girls were my inspiration. And now I'm amongst them. I can't be doing that, like I am the people that they look up to, a lot of them. So that has definitely changed. And then just my fighting style, I've gotten so much more confident, to the point I'm much more aggressive, and I don't just go in there looking to win as soon as possible. I go in there more strategically, and have a lot better fight IQ, I would say.
Okay. Do you think you would attribute a lot of that to the camp change?
No, not a lot of it's just growth personally, I think. I think my striking has definitely improved because of my camp change, though. That's what they've done more for me than anything, is come up with game plans and me develop my striking more so than I ever had. We focus a lot on Muay Thai, and before, I didn't really have much of a background. It was like American kickboxing, but it wasn't as comprehensive.
Okay, yeah, I would agree with that. Obviously, watching from the first fight to the last fight, you're striking 110%. It's so much better. It's so much more fluid. It's so much more crisp in the Paul Gonzalez fight. It was like almost watching two different people. So yeah, I can definitely attest to that. Your striking really has improved. So obviously, the first two fights of your career were actually at strawweight, and then since you had a couple of weight misses and you went up to flyweight. Do you see the rest of your career taking place at flyweight, or do you think it could change whether going down or up? Do you see it going the other way?
I think it's absolutely going to stay at flyweight. I tried strawweight at first. I was young, like I said, and I think I grew. Honestly, like at 18 years old, it wouldn't have been that hard to have cut to 115, because I was cutting completely wrong to 125 and I'd make it fairly easy. But then I grew muscle and started taking it really serious when I made my pro debut. And all of a sudden, I'm walking around at 140, super healthy, and making it to 115. That's a huge body percentage. Um, and now I walk around even heavier. So 125 is where I'll stay. 135, I'm just too short. Like I just don't have the body type to be moving up to 135, where girls are weighing 165, 170 and are 5'9", a lot of the time. So I'm probably going to stay where I'm at. I have obviously fought at 135 before. In my opinion, it was a little bit lower tier of a fight, and nobody would fight me at that point. I was just trying to get any fight I could take because nobody was willing to fight me, and I wanted to win back. So I took it at 135, and the rest of them, though, definitely flyweight.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Next question. I need to thank one of the redditors as well, Californication, because we had kind of the same outlook on this. So how do you feel to be debuting on probably one of the best cards of the year? Like this card, as you probably know, it's an absolute banger of a card, a great card to be debuting on. So like, is there some added pressure that comes on being on a stage like that?
Added excitement. I wouldn't even say pressure. The pressure is going to be the same because I get paid the same either way. But at the same time, it is this huge platform. I don't even know if it's one of the biggest. I think it is the biggest and best card of 2020. And that's going to give me so much more exposure, just from having so many more people watching it and anticipating that card. And that helps me in the long run, money wise, fan wise, the whole thing. And it's also intriguing to be going overseas. It's my first time ever leaving the United States. So that's going to be exciting. I wish it wasn't COVID, because I'm not even going to be able to venture around. But it's the start of a big journey. I'm excited regardless of where it would have been to be making my UFC debut.
That's great. Do you think, what about the fighting on Fight Island? Does it take any pressure off? Does it do the kind of no crowd? Is that helpful for you, or do you think it's more of a hindrance that you're going to be able to hear everything?
I think there's downsides and upsides to both. I think a lot of people get hyped up by the crowd, and even myself, it's really exciting when you walk out, you hear your name getting cheered and everything else, or the booing, either way, it excites me. I'm like, okay, like almost when it's worse, I do better because I'm like, all right, I'll show you people. But having no crowd is going to be different, definitely. But I train just as hard in the gym as I do during a fight, and I always, once I step into the cage, focus on 2 to 3 voices anyway, usually my own corners and then sometimes the other person's corner. Liana's corner is going to be speaking probably Russian, so I'm not going to be understanding him anyway. But that block out just won't even be necessary this time because that's all the voices I'll hear anyway.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, actually. So moving on from that, where do you see yourself going with the UFC organization? Like realistically, where do you see yourself in 12 months?
12 months. Yeah. I would actually,
or 24, I guess, with this kind of climate that we have right now.
Yeah, I'm going to do the 24. My goal within the next 2 years is to be in the top 10.
Top 10?
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's an easier task than it would be in a lot of other weight divisions. I think with my youth, I think with the lack of youth within the division and lack of like wrestling and grappling backgrounds in the division, along with it being newer. So there's not as many girls in the weight class. Some are bouncing in and out of it. And Valentina doesn't have a clear contender really so far. So I think I'd be able to bounce up pretty quick if I got a couple great fights underneath my belt.
Okay, so 2 questions off of that. One, you mentioned Valentina, which was leading to my next question. So obviously, as you've seen, Valentina's been pretty much unstoppable in this division. So what do you think you could bring to a potential showdown with Valentina Shevchenko? What do you think you could bring to it to maybe dethrone her or at least give us some problems?
That grappling and wrestling background. I don't think anybody's pushed her there. They'll like attempt a couple takedowns and it's usually so late into the fight that they're tired and her defense is on point because she's not. In addition, I have strength that I don't think many other girls have, like just the physical strength. So I hope that I could just go in there and overpower her striking with takedown attempts and out wrestle her.
Okay, that's a good answer. So obviously not looking past your next opponent, but just to get a feel for you, what would be your dream matchup in this division? Aside from the champion, obviously a dream matchup that comes after this, what would your matchup be?
I mean, aside from the champion.
Aside from the champion.
Yeah. I have people that come to mind, like there's Jennifer Maia that I'd like to fight eventually. Caitlin Chukagian, I think would be a great matchup for me. I would like to fight her soon, honestly.
Yeah.
Even Roxy would be a fun fight, especially with our personas. I think it'd be the happiest fight ever.
I agree. I think it'd be a completely different demeanor from most fights.
That's right. I saw her trying to talk crap in her last one, and that was hilarious. And I think
it just doesn't fit, does it? It doesn't suit. She's supposed to be nice. She's supposed to be happy. Okay, so going to your next opponent, Liana Jojua. Obviously, the vast majority of her wins have come by way of submission. Most notably armbar. I think all but one of her submission wins was by armbar. The other one was by heel hook. Obviously, you have a great BJJ background. You great submissions. Most of your victories have come by way of submission as well. Is that changing how you're coming across this fight? Is the game plan changing where her grappling is kind of on par? Is it still going to be the same game plan?
It's the same game plan. I'm very confident in my grappling, and from watching her fights, I think mine's much stronger than hers. Most of the girls that she has beat, if people pay attention, are within her own country. It's in a small area, small talent, in my opinion, and they aren't that high of records. I won't go as far as saying her record's padded, but it definitely doesn't hold up to the same amount of competitors at the highest rankings that I've fought and got submissions on. Her last victory was, of course, it was within the UFC, but everybody can get lucky and go against somebody that's not a grappler or have any grappling background. I watched that fight, and the whole time I was like, why isn't this girl defending the armbar? What is wrong with her? So ultimately, I think my submission or my grappling is far superior to hers. But I also feel like the striking game, I think that's where she's going to try to keep it with me. And I think she's going to be sorely disappointed that I'm better than she thinks I am.
That's a great answer. I mean, so I was kind of curious of whether you were going to go down the striking route because, like I said, watching your last fight against Paul Gonzalez, your striking was on point. Your striking was very good in that fight. So I was kind of curious if you were going to take this a striking route, but you're gonna keep it the same as you've always done. So that's good. Yeah, that's
Kind of wherever it goes, whatever opportunities present itself. If I see an easy route to a victory, I'll take it. If I want to hold on to the striking and kind of show my well-rounded game, I'd like the opportunity to do that as well and just kind of dominate the whole fight.
Okay, that's a great answer. So, is there something you believe that still needs work in your game right now? Is there something that you could work on more, or are you feeling kind of confident where you are at the moment?
My opinion is you can always work on everything more, and I'm young. I feel like I progressed so much in between my fights, partly because of age, partly because of my trainers are just really good. My coaches are great. My training partners are great. My wrestling improves, my grappling improves, my striking. Every day of experience is one level up for me, and I try to treat every day like that. I work just as hard as if I was getting ready to fight the world champion for this fight, or if I don't have a fight coming up, So yeah, I'd say the weakest part of my game right now is I don't even know. I don't have like a clear weakness anymore to where it used to be striking. Now maybe it's that transition. It's really hard to tell because of my training partners. They're mostly men, so I get beat up every single day.
Yeah.
It's not even a challenge for most of them to just be like, "Oh, I'm going to take you down and beat you at your wrestling." Meanwhile, within the women's MMA organizations, I'm seen as this great wrestler and grappler. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm not in my gym. I get beat up daily. So from that perspective, I suck at defending takedowns, but at the same time, I go against women and I feel very confident in all aspects.
Okay. So speaking to that, the training, what's a day in the life right now?
Woof. It's scheduling in your interview and missing a meeting because of it. That's
Now you make me feel bad. I'm so sorry.
No, I've been doing it all week. I've had so many interviews. I wake up, I get schoolwork done because usually I just pass out. It's usually like 2 a.m. by the time I go to sleep because I have so much schoolwork to do. I usually wake up around 7:30 or 8, or try to at least, and work on more schoolwork, go to practice every other day from 10:30 to 12:30. The days that I don't go to practice, I go do strength and conditioning training. Today has been a little bit lighter. Instead, I went and did some personal care and got my nails done and stuff, but that's not typical. And taking care of medicals lately. But anyway, after training in the morning, then I go back to school. I usually have schoolwork anywhere from 1 to 5 in the afternoon, depending on which class it is during the week. Then I go to training from 5:30 to about 10:30, get home at 11, shower, eat, try to meal plan, and whatever else in between that time. It's crazy.
That sounds very busy. I don't envy you. So in the spirit of this fight you've got coming up, what would be your prediction for this fight?
I would say submission, first or second round.
First or second round? Any submission you go to? Is it going to be another arm bar? Are you going to beat your own game?
Oh no, I expect like a knockout or knock down with the striking first, like weaken her, make her fall to the ground, and then finish it with a submission while she's weak on the ground. Might be a choke, might be an arm bar. I don't know. Whatever it is, I'm not going to put myself in jeopardy in the meantime.
That's a good fight IQ to have. Okay, I'm just gonna go through Reddit and I'm gonna see kind of what questions the community has, and I'm gonna ask you a couple of them. Okay, bear with me 1 second.
Reddit can be nice and Reddit can be really mean. It depends on.
It's very true. Let me have a quick look. So Junior Dos Nachos asks, would you rather fight a Chris Cyborg sized Michelle Waterson or a Michelle Waterson sized Chris Cyborg?
A Michelle Waterson sized Chris Cyborg, for
Michelle...
sure. That would match up and I'd beat her up.
That makes sense.
So intimidating, if a Michelle Waterson sized Cyborg was that big, then I'm sure she'd be pretty freaking. too and punch me a couple times, and I'd be like, please stop.
You're probably right. Donny Pop asked a really good one. What did you learn from doing the Phoenix Series tournament?
Oof. I learned you better have some good cardio and be ready for chaos whenever you step into the ring. I would honestly, like, on a non-joking side, emotional stability between fights. Like, it was really hard for me to control my emotions. I was almost worried about it going into the tournament, because when I win fights, like, every emotion from fight camp, every emotion from my entire life just hits me. I'm usually like bawling my eyes out. When I win when I lose, it's the exact opposite. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, I'm gonna go back to the gym, train, come back and win a fight. But when I win, it's just like I get so emotional and I'm so happy that I start crying. I'm freaking out. Luckily, I was able to treat that tournament as not even a fight until I got to the finals. So the first one, I was like, all right, that's one of 3 laps I got to do. Keep working. Second, pretty happy because I got to finish. That meant a bonus. And so I was like, okay, won that one pretty easy. Gave me some extra time to breathe because I got it over with a little faster. And then the finals, of course, you know, I won more money than I had ever made in my life at one time. So I just let loose after that fight. So
that makes sense. A little follow up on my own question actually on that, because obviously in the final you got one of your losses back. You got back in the win column for that. Does it kind of annoy you not to avenge the other loss? Would you like to avenge the other loss? Let's say, you know, if you got into the UFC.
Not necessarily. For me, I know fight math doesn't actually work, but every fighter does it, whether they want to admit it or not. From my perspective, I've kind of already surpassed the me that fought her before. The only reason I lost to begin with was pace. My cardio wasn't where it needed to be. 3rd round, I started slacking off, lost the 3rd round, ended up losing the decision. I am proud to say that I've only ever lost by decision. I've never been finished, and usually the decisions aren't strong decisions. And usually it's my own fault that I lose, or at least I take it that way. Like, I just wasn't pushing the pace, or I wasn't moving forward enough. And so I think easily I could go back and win that fight. And I've also now beat up somebody who beat her. So there's that too. I demolished Pearl Gonzalez, and she was barely able to beat Brogan. So
you did. And obviously, after watching that fight, the Brogan fight, I had it pretty close. Like, it was 1 round apiece going into the 3rd, but even the 3rd, I had it. It was a pretty close fight. Either way it went, you know, no one could call it a robbery. So even though you did lose, I think a very, very small margin, I would say. Okay, let's see what else people have.
Also, Brogan's super nice, so I'm just like, you're fine.
So you don't mind. That's okay. E-Rage wants to know 2 questions. What's your favorite High School Musical song?
Well, they're going to be disappointed to hear that I hate High School Musical and I never listened to it, so I don't know.
Wow. Okay, maybe you can redeem in the second one. To be fair, I haven't listened to it either, so I wouldn't know. Stone Cold or The Rock?
The Rock, of course.
Yeah, that's the right answer. Okay, this is a good one. Renowin asks, why don't you use Top Gun as your fighter nickname?
So I thought about it, and I'm selling merchandise that has that. I'm going to use it more of my phrase instead of my nickname for now. It may change in the future, but I feel like it's just so like used. But at the same time, it would help me get publicity because of that, probably. So just person, I'm really debating on it still.
So it could change. It could change to Top Gun.
Right. The Fear the thing is so unique. Like Fear the Maverick, it just goes with my last name. But the Top Gun thing obviously fits the whole movie. But I also don't like Tom Cruise. And there's ups and downs to it, you know. But
I'll make sure I don't tag Tom Cruise in this interview then, just to
you know. And I like him as an actor. The person, maybe not.
Does anyone like him as a person, really? Probably not.
Gotta believe in his views, I guess.
Exactly. Call Me Jack. He says he's noticed you've majored in psychology and sociology. Do you plan to continue with a career within that major, or do you want to pursue a UFC career first and foremost?
First off, Colby Jack is a very interesting name, like Colby Jack cheese or something. I don't know if that's what his parents had in mind, but it's great. Yeah, I kind of already am pursuing a career, I guess you'd say, within that field. I went on through my education. Right now, I'm getting a PhD in industrial organizational psychology on from that undergraduate bachelor's degree. So I should have my master's within the next semester or so, and then working towards that PhD at Old Dominion University. And I plan on, after fighting, if my fighting doesn't make it big and I never need to make another dollar again, great. But if I do need a job, I plan on doing business consulting within my degree.
Well, let's hope you don't end up needing that job, and we see you at the top of the division sooner rather than later. Okay, last question is from the same person. In your 2 decision losses, what have you learned from them?
I think it just put a fire underneath my butt, it made more motivation to go in there and kind of just showed me weaknesses that I had mentally more than anything. Both times was me just not pushing the pace, not being aggressive enough, and being hesitant. That was a lot of it too, especially in the Deanna Bennett fight. I was just too hesitant to do some things, and then I get myself in trouble. And my takedown defense was crap with her because I was too confident on the ground. And that's something that I have fixed over time.
Perfect. Great answer. Well, lastly, do you have any sponsors, anyone you want to thank? Feel free, go ahead.
Definitely. So my gym is the House of Muay Thai in Norfolk, Virginia. You guys should go follow them if you get a chance. My Instagram is at @FearTheMaverick_HOMT. That's the best way to follow me, or Miranda Fear the Maverick on Facebook. It's my athlete page. As long as you're not a creeper, I'll usually let you follow my personal page too, and then direct you to that one. I have a few sponsors that are my key ones that have kind of stuck with me through this whole process, and that's been Victory Beef LLC. They provide me all of the beef that I need to eat throughout my fight camps, so that's been nice. Top Mount Apparel that handles my no-gi and gi clothing sometimes, and then Yotan USA that sponsors me for all my gi jiu-jitsu. And then there's also Girl Clothing. And I have Next Gen. I've actually been trying them for meal prep lately. They're like a vegan, plant-based place that I've been trying. I'm not vegan. However, I eat vegan about 4 days a week now, and it's been really nice.
I was going to say, you just said someone supplies you all like your meat products. So that's a bit of a weird one to go from that to vegan. I was like, vegan? Really? Okay. Well, that's great. Thank you for coming here today and having this interview with me, taking your time out of your busy schedule. And obviously, you can catch her fighting Liana Jojua, UFC 254. Watch it. She predicts a submission. I have no reason to argue. She knows better than I do. Again, thank you, Miranda, for coming in today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.